Hi, it's Jasmine. You know, that girl who did you know what way before the internet ever existed. Join me and my special guest every week as we talk about anything and everything because nothing is too taboo. So punch your ticket and get on board the Krazy Train with me, Jasmine St. Clair. All aboard!
I know, this is like crazy.
Got it.
We're here. Oh my God. Thank you so much for coming on. When I first met you, Laura, I thought you looked like the gorgeous version of Bridget Nielsen. And I know you get that a lot.
I get that all the time. In fact, a lot of the times people don't remember the name of Brigitte Nielsen. And so they just look at me and they go, Rocky IV. I get that all the time. It's like when you're 6 feet tall and you're peroxide blonde and you walk through the room like, you know, you're swinging muscles and potentially swinging dick, you get a lot of that attention, right? They go, wait a minute, is this Red Sonja? Is this Brigitte Nielsen? Am I about to get my back broken? You might.
Yeah, I noticed that you're super healthy. And I don't really, most of my fans know who listen to this or watch it, because now we just started adding video per their request. I don't really go out there looking too much about what you do, but I do know what you do in a way. And you're quite the person. You're quite the guest to have on here. So why don't you tell us a little bit about like how you got your start being around the adult business?
Certainly. I'm Laura Desiree, and I'm one of the hosts of Naked News, which is a legacy web series that's been going for 20 plus years. I've been with them for 7. Before Naked News, I was a burlesque dancer that performed a lot in burlesque clubs, but also in strip clubs. So I kind of got both of those experiences, traveled the world doing it. I mean, Europe was just such an amazing experience. They really celebrate sexuality. My years with Naked News, I've enjoyed production so much and I've enjoyed sex journalism that it's led me to a number of other projects and a number of other efforts in trying to bring our sexual stories and really just an understanding of sexuality to the masses, because I truly believe it's the key to unlocking an understanding of ourselves. Our sexuality is so unique, and the more you can understand about your sexual self, the more you know about the entire package of yourself.
Yeah, I wish more guys would really think like that, because it's so black and white with them. And I knew about your Naked News stuff, and that's kind of an interesting gig, because I was thinking of that years ago, even though I'd been out of the adult business. How did you even get recruited for that? Did you audition for it? How did you find out?
So at the time, they had just finished airing on Playboy TV, which was one of the big connections that existed for them for most of their legacy. But now they're entirely web-based, and they do a lot of additional segments and content that isn't just on a green screen reading the news. So they have one segment in particular called Naked News Moves, where the anchors that are on the show learn a new kind of dance style. And I was cast to teach them burlesque, which I think is necessary for anyone who is making a living trying to gracefully, introduce their nakedness. You should have an understanding of burlesque. You absolutely should be comfortable in that realm. And so I came in to teach that. And we had so much fun on set. We had so much fun on set, just taking it slow and teaching these anchors how to hit some really strong silhouettes and make architecture of their reveals, of sharing their nudity. And we just hit it off. They said to me immediately, Laura, you have to come do a screen test. I did the screen test. It was amazing how fast it all happened. Like, we became such famous friends instantly. And I was 26 at the time, and I will say this openly, I still laugh at the fact that the producer of Naked News said to me, "You're 26. Why did you wait this long to join the show? Like, we've got to get some use out of you. And I still to this day think it's one of the ugliest things you could say to a person. Like, look, I get it. It's a business, and entertainment is constantly trying to remind, especially women, you've got to become a success when you're young. But I am grateful that I came at it at the year and the age that I did, because it's helped me put everything I've learned into practice and make some really fucking awesome content.
Yeah, it is sort of an insensitive thing to say, because I feel as though people forget Debbie Harry wasn't exactly a spring chicken when she hit it big, and she's one of the most talented women out there. She's sexier than a lot of these 20-something-year-old pop stars. And
Right.
it really doesn't make a difference what age you are. Like, I got into the adult film business when I was 26 years old.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the person, and you're better off waiting now. We're better off waiting a few years before doing it when you're like young and confused, or you have like
Absolutely.
boyfriend
Yeah.
pushing you.
I loved that I had years to put miles on my mattresses, make some interesting mistakes, but also get used to the open road of sexuality, because I was going to be presenting it and making a living from it. And now I also do content creation, which expects me to have entire agency over my body, my restrictions, my limits, and how I want to express myself. Had I gotten in a little too early, there might have been a desperation to please. I'm very competitive, especially with myself. So I don't know if I would have made the best decisions for myself, knowing I'm as competitive and I'm as a perfectionist go-getter, wanting to impress and dazzle everyone on earth. You know, I'm grateful for when I stepped into it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Nobody ever realizes that you're your biggest competitor. Like, you're always in
Yeah.
competition with yourself every day. Now, are you from New York, or where are you from originally? Because you have an
I'm
interesting look as well.
I'm from Toronto originally, but I remember when I graduated high school and everybody else got right into university and like started getting into their next phase of education and institution, I said, fuck it. I remember getting an apartment at 18 in Brooklyn, right where Brooklyn and Queens meet, in a place called Ridgewood. And I lived in New York from 18 to about 24. And that was the best time of my life. I mean, you want to talk about gaining an independence, throw a young woman, throw a young person into New York City, knowing that you only have a certain amount of money, knowing that every decision is up to you, family is far away. It's that whole beautiful romance of Bob Dylan saying, "How does it feel to be without a home, with no direction home, to be on your own with no direction home?" That's a very powerful moment in a young person's life.
I wish more young people these days would actually explore that, instead of staying in this confines of like a college campus or the confines of
Right.
home, because it's just so comfortable. It feels like they're so, scared these days. Do you think that there are a lot of younger girls that get into the adult business these days that make mistakes? And what do you think most of them are, aside from the obvious, signing away your rights?
Well, I think you signing away your rights, it really is, it can be making a deal with the devil of sorts. I think that a lot of young people have not had the time to observe how sexuality and how sexual experiences impact their self-worth. Whether or not we want to admit it, when we are in a sexual experience, it's quite vulnerable. And you leave with an impression of yourself. How did the other person feel? How did I behave in that situation? Why did I react that way? And if you're doing it for the sake of your business and for your earnings in life, and you need it because it's a job, it could skew your understanding of your sexuality equating to your self-worth. I think it's a very important time in your life to be gentle with yourself and to be open to explorations that aren't based on, this is a paycheck and you need to do it because it's a paycheck. So I would think that, a lot of unfortunate outcomes can happen from getting in too early. Of course, we are met with so many opportunities for very quick success. We are very quick to applaud people that want to do this brave thing known as having sex on camera. I mean, you're going to get a fan base, you're going to get audiences, but when does that start to split the authentic human being you are into the product that's getting applause and getting praise, and how do you continue to grow parallel. You need to continue to grow with your authentic self. You can't just divorce it and say, great, I'm a superstar, let's forget about who I am genuinely, authentically, vulnerably. And that's the balancing act. So I think it can be a dangerous thing to get into early, but that's where support needs to be stronger and community needs to be stronger. And there is a responsibility for anyone in this business to kind of look out for people getting into it and maybe trying to make some of those first decisions.
That's interesting you say that, because I remember being in that industry in the 90s. I
Yeah.
like Lisa Ann is very level-headed. She's probably one of the more level-headed people I met in that business. Why is my cat coming up here?
Hi.
Hi, Enzo. No, he's trying to flirt with you. So then, I remember she's trying to be friends. We were friendly, but I just stayed away from people in that business then because I didn't feel it was as supportive as it probably is today.
Hmm.
And my advice to people is, when you're on your off time, don't dress like a porn star going to the, supermarkets. Don't live in the neighborhoods that everyone else lives in, and don't go to their parties because they probably have really bad drugs. But what would be your advice as far as forming a community to feel safe and divide your personalities?
There's serious wisdom in keeping access to the world outside of the adult industry. When you start to depend on a group of people that are just that group of people and you don't have connections outside of it, you sometimes build a strange reaction to the outside world. You either feel you're in competition with them or that you're being pushed away from them. You're made to feel different from them. And yes, stigma is a real fucking thing. It's out there. And society does have a challenging relationship with the adult world. But I think it's so important to keep connections alive with the outside world. I was just hosting a panel at XBiz Miami last week, and we were talking about how to strengthen community. And there was a lovely individual in the audience who said, I'm a legal professional, and my piece of advice, and I'm actually carrying her piece of advice right now, she said, get in touch with people that help you build an infrastructure for survival and for ease in your life that aren't necessarily in the adult industry, whether that means finding an ally that exists in the legal world or in the medical world or in these industries that are outside of adult. There are allies within them. So like when you meet someone, introduce them to the rest of the community. Let people know that, hey, there's, a mental health professional that does not shame you for what you do. This is the contact. We have to share those connections and introduce ourselves to each other. That's major.
Yeah, I wish we had mental health specialist for adult film stars back when I was doing that. Unfortunately, I lost a really good friend of mine who was doing that, my friend Amy. But it's such a weird thing because then you grow into like having a lower esteem of like what you should expect in a relationship. Now, do you have an issue dating? Do people have a certain stigma or like idea about you because of what you do?
Here's what I've done to make my dating life absolutely perfect in my own regard. And I always tell who I'm dating the obvious. I'm a flirt. That I make a living being this boisterous, loud, and proud sexual human being because that's what I am. But the connection I have with my partner is something completely private, and I love keeping it that way. So when I am in a relationship with somebody, that's between me and them. I think a lot of our world today and a lot of like younger people, they feel like, hey, we've got these social media accounts. We have to share everything. Every part of our life needs to be included in our online personas and in our content creation. And that shit's not true. It's just not, it's not how it needs to be. And when you are someone that lives in some kind of the public sphere, I don't get noticed when I go out. Sometimes people, oh, hey, naked news. But for me, it's like I need to have a grounding person in my personal life that knows me as maybe a little messy, maybe a little emotional, maybe a little bit not so composed from time to time. So for me, that's what's worked, is like I don't feel that oversharing is something I need to deliver and pour into. I like having a private aspect of my life, and that's what dating has been.
it's interesting because everyone lives their lives on social media. And
Yeah,
oh, well, if it's not there, then it didn't happen. No,
right,
there's a small, like there's this whole era, this whole section of your life that should not be up there. I don't want
right.
to know about your GYN appointment. I don't want to know about you like YOLO, living my best life ever when you're probably broke as fuck. But
Right.
exactly. And people do this all the time. It's like smoke and mirrors. And I know it was fun, like being a part of the industry before that whole internet
Oh,
like being created then. And I'm not sure how old you are, I don't ask people that, but how do you think it's changed besides everything being free? Like, do you think it's really tough to make money now, being that people do this shit on Instagram for free? Some of those things
here's
people post.
I agree completely, and I am happy to disclose that I'm 33. So I remember time before the internet and before social media, before cell phones were in everybody's hand, before cameras were on cell phones. So I remember watching and observing this boom of how websites started to take over, how we depended on websites. And now I see there are generations that are unable to live without access to this virtual space. And I think it's going to change us evolutionally. I think we're going to start to hunch over and our thumbs are going to grow really huge, from scrolling. I do think that that is going to be an evolutionary change, um, but folks that overshare, that live their life entirely online, and that maybe give it away for free. I mean, is it something that we can necessarily stop? I don't think so. You look at the last 2 years that we've had with the pandemic, and people depended on their virtual realities more than ever before. And it became a place where we validate our self worth. And as much as we don't want to admit it, as much as we want to say, that's not true, I don't care how many likes I get, I don't care how many followers I have, bitch, you're still checking it constantly. And it could be between you and yourself, but we are conditioned. We are being conditioned to further depend on that validation in our online lives. So, yeah, I do see people offering as much of themselves as possible as like, here, is this going to get me more? Is this going to get me more? Down the line, what does that mean for our mental health? I couldn't tell you. I think it's going to be challenging because the virtual world is only growing further. We're only building it up to be more and more of a reality to live within.
Yeah, it's scary. And it's also the whole issue of keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you didn't flex. If you flexed your internet muscles and people found you, they would beat the living shit out of you. Nowadays, people just get away with it.
Right.
And it seems as though anyone could just take a cell phone and tape anything or anyone they want in public. And there's no longer like that whole area of privacy. And speaking of
Right.
privacy, what would you say is the craziest or no, the worst sexual experience you ever had on that mattress?
The worst sexual experience of my entire life. I mean, are we going into the dark assault places? Because, like most sexual beings, we've run into experiences where, hey, boundaries were pushed. There have been boundaries pushed early in my life. And it's so funny. I rarely tell the story of being in a situation where I must have been 21, and you get excited to tell somebody that you're into it really rough. You're into the rough stuff. And of course, at 21, I was like, I want to experience I want to be impressive to this person. And then I learned what their idea of rough stuff was. And that's where you have to go, holy shit, this is happening. Of course, there have been, there's memories of it, and it's painful to go back and say, remember when that boundary was pushed and when that option for it to stop was taken. Um, but it's important to know what you're communicating to people. That's big, especially when you're still kind of with the training wheels of sexuality. So being even 21 and saying to someone as passionately, convincingly, and excitedly as I was, saying, I like the rough stuff, well, we didn't discuss what the rough stuff was. And I learned about the full spectrum of rough stuff from an individual. And this was before the boom of consent talk. But I do think when certain kinds of play are happening, rough stuff especially, you gotta be specific. And I have never gone into a rough stuff situation. I still like rough stuff. I have never gone into a rough stuff situation since that without saying explicitly, this is what I mean. Now you tell me, what's your rough stuff? We need to know, because I don't want to be taken by surprise. That's where it gets ugly.
I'm so sorry that happened to you. I feel so bad that I asked that, but I just have
Don't
to.
at all.
Okay.
Don't at all. I am entirely here.
Are you? Yeah, because the whole like safety word thing, I think my craziest, roughest experience was a blackout haunted house when it first opened up. And they say you have a safe word, but while you're getting waterboarded, or that's what it felt like, and you're saying the safe word, they still don't let you go.
Yeah.
But that's incredible. And
Yeah.
did you watch porn growing up? And what was your first porn that you ever watched, if you ever did watch it?
Oh, I remember vividly. Okay. So this was back in the days growing up in Toronto, where late at night you would get the infomercials of the women in the bathing suits, and they were always playing Hootie and the Blowfish, and it was those call lines. I remember those, but if you waited a little bit longer and you clicked through some of the channels that were all squiggly lines, every once in a while you would get a little bit of the picture coming through. And I remember they were screening a film called Memoirs of a Madam. And I recall, I must have been like 8. I remember glass toys being used. I had never seen a glass toy in my life, and I was so blown away by it. It was 2 women in French-made outfits and glass toys. I'd never seen anything as beautiful, as sparkling, as luxurious, as sexy as that icicle glass dildo. I mean, I literally, I have one in my drawer because they are so sexy, and this takes me back to being so captivated by that porn. That was my first porn that I ever saw, and it was amazing.
That's incredible. Can I see that glass toy? Like that just
Look at this thing. Isn't it gorgeous?
It's beautiful. I remember when those first came out, and
Yeah.
people would have them like, what if that breaks? Like, what if there's some person just like using that in you and they just get really mad? And I just have these really weird things. I've never used one, by the way, just for the record. I never really used a lot of toys because I don't know. I guess like I've had enough sex in like this lifetime and the next lifetime for like both you and me. So maybe that's not why
Well said.
One of these days it will happen. I hope you're enjoying the ride on Krazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. So if you are, do me a huge, huge favor. Woo! Please go ahead. Go on to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever, but Apple's great. Give me a nice rating and review. Send me a screenshot, and I promise you I will send you a special goodie bag. So please rate and review Krazy Train with Jasmine St. Clair podcast. And in exchange for that, once I see the DM with the review and your name and address, I will get those gift bags out to you. I'm not going to tell you what's in it.